Who is your favourite Premier League player of all time?
Robin Van Persie.
Haaland.
Cantona.
Lukaku.
Duncan Ferguson.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Fans Football Fill-In, where we get some of the biggest and best Premier League fans and we deep dive on the previous weekend's fixtures as we hear their thoughts and football takes, as well as hearing what club they support and what it's like for them to support their club. My name is Matthew McMillan, and in today's episode on the podcast we're going to be talking to a huge Premier League fan who is also a fan of arguably one of, if not the biggest club in England, Manchester United, aka the Red Devils. I think everyone who is listening to the podcast knows about the iconic history of the club, whether that be the treble winning season in 1999 where Solskjaer won the Champions League for United in the dying minutes, which is yet to be done to this day, or the 20 times that Manchester United have won the Premier League thanks to one of the greatest managers of all time, Sir Alex Ferguson. However, as much as I'd like to, we're not here to talk about Manchester United, we're here to talk about our opinions on the weekend's Premier League fixtures, so let's get straight into this. What made you start supporting Manchester United?
Well, it was my dad. I always supported them, so when I was old enough to go to the games, my dad took me to the first game, and I remember watching them in the 1985 Cup final on the telly against Everton, which they won, so that made me support Man United.
How was growing up watching United compared to now?
Well, there was... players were a bit more approachable, so you could, you might bump into them if you're around Manchester. They didn't have a better team as they did today, but they did have a good side. They weren't one of the best teams in the league, but they did win a few cups. I just think they're different now because of the fitness and quality of them are a little bit better, but there were some good players around when I was watching them when I was younger. But as the Premier League started, obviously United got better, and that was when I was mainly going to the games on a regular basis anyway, so I seen them through all the good times of winning the league and the European Cup and FA Cups.
As a United fan, what clubs do you dislike the most and why?
It's got to be Liverpool because they are one of the most successful clubs in the country, so they're on the same sort of amount of trophies as us, near enough. They were obviously the team to beat when I was growing up, but then obviously as I still got a bit older, we overtook them. Plus, I live right in between Liverpool and Manchester, so they're probably ones I dislike the most. And Leeds, because I've just got a hatred for us, and they're from Yorkshire, and we're classed as Lancashire.
Not Manchester City.
They're small time, I still see them as small time, even though they're winning. They're not a massive club in my eyes, so Manchester City, no.
What do you think of United's performance over the weekend?
So I thought they were a bit quiet in the first half against Leicester, and then, to be fair, they played a lot better in the second half and ended up winning. Obviously, good to see Sancho scoring a goal in that game, because that was his first game back, really, after being out on the sidelines. So, yeah, it's a good performance. They're winning games, that's what matters. It's getting points on the board, so happy with the win.
What team do you think played well this week and why?
I think Aston Villa played well against Arsenal, even though they got beat. I thought they had gave Arsenal a game, and it was only until sort of the last couple of minutes that Arsenal came back in and ended up winning it. So yeah, I thought they played well, and they were unlucky not to get it. There was a bit of mess, unlucky with an own goal by Martinez, which he couldn't do anything about, but and then another goal in injury time. So yeah, I'd say Villa.
What teams did you think didn't play well and why?
Obviously, I thought Brighton didn't play great. They've been doing well at the minute, and then they end up getting beat. Wolves was another one. I thought they probably would have gone out and beat Bournemouth because they picked up a bit of form, but again, they didn't win. And obviously, Man City, they drawn 1-1 against Notts Forest, so I was very much expecting them, to win. So I suppose that's a bad result for them.
What was your favourite game to watch this weekend and why?
So obviously, I'm going to say Man United because I wanted to watch them, and they won, so that was my best game. Although the Villa and Arsenal game was quite good in the morning, so for goals, etc., and a bit of drama, so yeah.
What was your surprise of the weekend and why?
Probably Notts Forest drawing against Man City. I don't think anyone... all that they've been playing well, but you would expect Man City to beat Forest, especially if they've got eyes on winning the league, so yeah, I think Notts Forest was probably the surprise game.
And what are your opinions on VAR decisions being given recently?
It's been a lot better this season, I think. I think last year it was a bit hit and miss. There was a few dodgy decisions. I think overall, this weekend just gone, there wasn't anything controversial. So yeah, it's doing a lot better, and they're giving the referee more control over picking those decisions by going to the on-field screen.
Who do you think will win the Premier League and why?
The more I think about it, I'd say it's looking like it might be Arsenal. But you can't probably write off Man City because there's still a lot of games to go. But Arsenal probably do look like they're going to win it. The more and more I watch them, I think it's going to be Arsenal.
Who will get top 4 and why?
So I think it's going to be obviously Arsenal will win. It's going to be City there, probably second or first, depending. I think Man United will definitely finish third or in the top 4. And then I'm going to say it's probably going to be Spurs or Liverpool who get the last spot. Only because Liverpool will pick up form.
And who do you think will get relegated from the Premier League this season and why?
So, say Bournemouth, probably Leeds, and hopefully West Ham. I just don't think they've got... Well, West Ham have got a decent squad, but they just don't seem to be performing. Leeds and Bournemouth have not got great squads. They lost a few players. I think Bournemouth have been found out of being in the Premier League for so long now. I think they're just going to struggle. So I see them 3 going down.
And finally, where do you think your club will finish this season and why?
So I think we will be third. Although we've got a good squad, we may, if we get a few injuries, I think we're a bit light in reserves. So, and we're winning all the cup competitions still as well. So that's going to be quite hard because they're playing a lot of games. So I'm going to go third. I don't think they're finishing first. There's no expectation to finish first. So third is a good position.
And now we move on to that part of the show where we test the fans' Premier League knowledge, as I will ask a few questions about the Premier League, which will then go on to the rankings for next week. Now, let's see if this fan has what it takes to reach the number 1 spot. Who is the first club to win the Premier League?
United.
Who scored the fastest hat-trick in Premier League history?
Salah.
Who has made the most Premier League appearances?
Ryan Giggs.
Which 3 players shared the Golden Boot in the 2018-2019 season?
Salah, Aubameyang, and I'll say Wayne Rooney.
Who has scored the fastest Premier League goal in just 7.69 seconds?
Salah.
Name 3 out of the 6 teams that have never been relegated from the Premier League.
Liverpool, United, and Arsenal.
Who won the Premier League in the 1994-95 season?
Blackburn.
Which manager has managed the most Premier League clubs?
Sam Allardyce.
Who is the Premier League all-time top goal scorer?
Alan Shearer.
And finally, there are 3 teams who have equalled the highest scoring match in Premier League history at 9-0. Name 2 of those teams.
United and Liverpool.
And that is the end for our quick-fire questions. Congratulations to Stephen on getting a solid 6 out of 10 on our Premier League quiz. This means he currently sits top of our leaderboards for now, but will it last? Now it's that time in the show where we've heard from the fans and I will be giving my thoughts on what I think the scores of next week's fixtures will be. So make sure you stay tuned for the next episode to see how many I got correct. To start off match day 25, we see Wolves versus Fulham, which I personally think is going to be a 2-1 win to Fulham, as I think Wolves aren't as strong this season, especially in terms of attacking, as we see Raul Jimenez come back and he's not been the same since that head injury versus Arsenal, and I think Fulham have a much better team than them with the likes of Mitrovic, Andreas Pereira, Tim Ream and many others. I feel like they're too strong for Wolves right now and I'd say 2-1. Next fixture of the game week is Aston Villa versus Everton, and I think Aston Villa will win 2-0. I think Ollie Watkins will score, as he's been on good form recently under new manager Unai Emery, and I just think Everton haven't got that attacking push for teams like Villa, as people like Damari Gray and Neil Maupay won't guarantee you 10 plus goals a season, so I think Villa will win that 2-0 comfortably. Next fixture is Arsenal versus Leicester City, and I think Arsenal will win that comfortably as well, 3-0, as Arsenal are currently top of the table by 5 points and Leicester are currently having a bad season with the likes of Harvey Barnes, Jamie Vardy, Iheanacho not all living up to what they should be and not scoring the goals for Leicester City, and they're currently leaking in a lot of goals as well, so I think Arsenal will win that comfortably 3-0. The next game is West Ham versus Nottingham Forest, and I think it will be a Nottingham Forest win, 2-1. I think it will be a tight game between Nottingham Forest and West Ham, as I feel like Nottingham Forest have upgraded a lot, but I think under Steve Cooper, I think their squad's starting to gel a lot more, and I feel like the likes of Jesse Lingard, newcomers Keylor Navas, their defence, I feel like Chris Wood up front for Nottingham Forest, I feel like that would just edge it for Nottingham Forest. Leeds versus Southampton, I think Leeds will come away 2-0 winners. I feel like Southampton this season have been very poor, only relying on the people like James Ward-Prowse to carry him out of games. I feel like the defence is just not as good as previous seasons, and I feel like the likes of Weston McKennie coming in January for Leeds, I feel like they've massively upgraded their midfield, and I feel like it'll be a comfortable 2-0 win for Leeds. The next game is Man City versus Bournemouth, and I could see Man City running away with this 3 or 4-0. The next game is Liverpool versus Crystal Palace. I can see Liverpool winning this one 2-0 comfortably. I think even though Liverpool have a dodgy start this season and he looks a bit shaky at times, so I'd definitely say 2-0 Liverpool comfortably. comfortably. And the final game of the week is Tottenham versus Chelsea, and I feel like Tottenham will win this 2-1. I feel like it will be a tight game between Tottenham and Chelsea because it's seen as a big game this weekend, as it is a big rivalry. But I feel like Chelsea this season, this is definitely a transition season for Chelsea as they bring in new players and they brought in a new manager in Graham Potter. I feel like it's just all not gelling at the moment, and I feel like people like Harry Kane and Heung-min Son and Kulusevski, I feel like they'll just be too much for the new Chelsea defence, and I feel like Tottenham will win that. I feel like Tottenham will just scrape it in the last minutes, 2-1. And that's all we have time for on this episode of the Fans Football Fill-In. I would like to thank our special guest Stephen for coming on the podcast and giving the listeners some interesting thoughts and opinions on the weekend's Premier League fixtures. And I would also like to thank everyone who's tuned into the podcast. It massively helps us out. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the Fans Football Fill-In. Stay tuned for the next episode where we'll be hearing from another huge Premier League fan as we go from up north to down south, the mighty Arsenal.